So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this kind of impromptu little session that Susan and I were actually invited to do this webinar by a Facebook friend who's been a client, a close client of both of ours, Allison Needles. Said, hey, I really want to learn this information. And do you think you guys could just go ahead and do a webinar together and talk about what it really means to have the end of suffering, to be in the end of suffering? And if you're just joining us, go ahead and mute your microphone. Go ahead and mute your sound so that we can talk into all of you without any background noise.
Yeah, the mute button is in your lower left on your in the Zoom window.
Yeah, thank you. She just said, would you guys please go live and just talk about this? How do we really, what does that really mean to come out of suffering, the idea of suffering, and go into joy, which is, that's why we're here, right? We're all here for joy. We're here to experience joy. And so Susan and I got our heads together and decided to title it Sovereignty Through a Reunion with Joy. Because I talk a lot about sovereignty, so does Susan. Susan talks a lot about, beating the drum of coming out of suffering, and we decided to change the paradigm a little bit and not focus so much on the suffering part of coming out of suffering, but what's the solution? The solution is joy. Mm-hmm. And how do we cross that bridge into our receiving that perception and that paradigm of living a life that is with the intention of joy?
Yeah, and I think that we're going to have to make the leap. We're going to have to make the leap between suffering and liberation. That the incarnation that you're in now is we're bridging the gap between suffering and liberation. We're literally coming out of darkness, going back into consciousness. This incarnation that you're experiencing as you're listening to us talk is bridging the gap between the two. And that can feel like you're being pulled apart. It can feel like suffering's pulling on you and liberation is pulling on you. And at some point, we have to, well, we don't have to. I would hope.
We get to make
the leap and go, pull all the way out of suffering and go into liberation. That's where we find our hearts again. That's where we find what calls our souls forward. That's where we find what makes us happy and what it inspires us and where we feel like we belong in our lives again. And that's a choice. And it's a hard choice at the moment because we've been programmed to really sit in suffering as if it's our identity. And it's not. It's not who we are. And there's a pull to stay with where we've been because it's where we're comfortable. And society right now is set up in a lot of ways to foster the whole notion that you'll be happy one day, but not this day. And we're going to have to decide that that's not the story we're going to live, that we're not going to stay in the story of our brokenness, that we're going to go ahead and heal ourselves into the permission of living in joy all the time and not being talked out of it or hijacked out of it. And there's a lot of things in the world that wants to hijack out of the energy of I'm going to be free and happy now. And there's a lot of messaging that says you have to be afraid. And it's like, no, I'm not going to. And I think it's a choice. And not everybody has to make it. But I think Ameera and I are here to say that it's possible and that we're doing it. And we want to talk to more people who want to make that choice too.
So the paradigm of suffering is very Piscean Age. And we're past that. We're in the Aquarian Age. And there's really no better time to talk about the suffering that is ingrained in our subconscious than Easter. Mm-hmm. Because the whole premise of Easter, and as I go through this is definitely not to dismiss anybody's religious or spiritual beliefs. I was brought up Catholic, and one of the tenets of the Catholic faith, the Catholic religion, is suffering and sacrifice. And what Jesus did for us on the cross, suffering for us to liberate us. And so whether you were raised religious or not, that paradigm of having to suffer for people that you love, like to earn the love of people through suffering or show that you love them for suffering, is prevalent in our subconscious, whether you were raised in a religion that supported that or not. Like, it's just part of our collective mindset. And in this time of year, when we're just about to celebrate, that event, there's still so much focus on the suffering and the wounded and the pain. Well, what about the ascension? What about what happened on the third day with the rising and the ascension? And that is the liberation. So how about if we retrain our minds to think about, like, the journey of the suffering? Like, we've all paid our dues. We all have a lot. Okay. And you can take yourself down off the cross of guilt and of shame, or of anything or anything you feel you have done, and pull yourself out of that paradigm of guilt and shame and step now into this ascension and liberation of your soul, which is your automatic birthright to worthiness. So how do we do that, Susan? How do we start to do that?
Well, I think it's the difference between the age of Pisces and age of Aquarius. So the age of Pisces was martyrdom, and that we are grave sinners who have to earn our way back into holiness, that we are cast out in some way. And as humans, we won't ever get there. We have to get beyond this life to get back into God's good graces. All of that is over. All of that of suffering our way into paying back some sort of penance to get back into our holiness is over. Age of Aquarius is visionary, and it's future forward, and it sees a better way for us to be in the world. And it has us thinking of new ways to own our lives. It has nothing to do with putting ourselves on the sacrificial altar. That's not involved in this at all. That story is over. And I think that we're going to have to be brave and think of new ways of solving the world's problems and owning our own lives. And that's going to get wild. It's going to get wild. We're going to have to do things that we've never seen before. We're going to have to consider solutions we've never considered before. And there will be messaging of people who want to hang on to the age of Pisces that's going to say, oh, no, you can't do that. And we're going to have to go, yeah, we can. Watch. We have to think of new ways and take action into them. That's part of the energy that we're in with Pluto and Saturn, and coming in later is Jupiter in Capricorn. Is we're going to have to take action in new ways to build a new world based on what we find important. And what do we find important? It's not going to be that you have to pay some strange unnamed price to get back into holiness. It's we want to live better lives. It's we want to be present. We want to heal ourselves. We want to liberate people out of feeling like they are not welcome in their life. Like, a lot of people feel like they're a guest in their own lives. When will I be able to feel comfortable and okay with being here? You get to feel that way now. And anything that's in the way of that, you have to start moving it out of the way based on your own authority, not on asking for permission. It's because you said so. I mean, and that's, in and of itself, is hard. I mean, I've done a lot of that, where I've taken steps into getting myself into my own life, and anything that's stopping me, I'm not asking permission. I'm not asking for permission. I'm not asking, I'm telling. This has no room in my life. Get out of the way, because I own my own energy. I own my own life. I own my own vision for a better way of being in the world. And we have to stop looking for other people to tell us what that's going to be. We have to own it ourselves. We are the web that's building a new world.
Yeah. There is a huge collective release happening right now in shame and guilt and lower chakra energy. All the people that I'm working with are working with some theme or another of shame, and acknowledging and trying to release shame. And that there's a part of us that wants to hang on to that because it feels like an identity. Like, it feels like truth because we've lived in that paradigm for so very long. And I'm telling you right now, it's time to choose what causes you to feel empowered. That you are perfect in the eyes of Creator. You always have been. It seems like it's so much easier to forgive other people than it is to forgive ourselves, which is just crazy talk, right? Okay, so when you're looking at those things that you feel you may have done that are leaving those imprints of the shame and guilt within you, Okay, you really, really need to know that you have done nothing to diminish the truth of who you are. Nothing. There's nothing you could do to diminish the truth of who you are. All these people who may have come forward into your sphere and helped you create an experience of pain and suffering, okay, all these people who've come forward into my sphere, I know I made agreements with. I know I signed up with all these people, okay, to come forward and help me to remember my divinity and help me to learn to know that I could forgive myself anything. And really the higher truth is there's nothing to forgive. I'm going to share with you guys a little bit of something that's going on in my life that's personal. The reason I'm going to share this with you is because you need to know that the people who are standing before you and talking to you, Susan and I, we really walk our talk. Mm-hmm. We don't always talk about the personal things in public that have happened to us throughout our lives that have brought us to the place that we are. But you really need to know that just as you are in the thick of whatever circumstances are in your life, we are in that in ours as well. I recently, last week, had to put a restraining order against a man I was in a relationship with who was very, very abusive to me. I was not physically harmed in any way. But the mental and the emotional abuse and the threat of sexual abuse through text messaging and voicemail was very, very real. And this is a person, I have a history of being a rescuer in relationships. I have a history of working joining with really wounded men because of my martyrdom and my savior complex. And this man was like the grand finale of all the relationships that I went through that carried the same theme. And in every relationship that I moved through, I could never break that dynamic of feeling like I had to gain my worthiness by sacrificing or by taking hits for a person who is suffering. So it all led us to this pinnacle of this moment where his behavior became so extreme. And it was apparent that he was not going to stop, even though I set a lot of boundaries that I had to take legal action. And we'll be going to court and doing a hearing so I can help the TRO to stick for the next 3 years, because I can't have this person showing up in my life at all anymore. The most empowering thing I did for myself was the day that I walked into the courthouse and I filled out that paperwork, and I had to admit the shame on paper and do the accounting of all the different experiences that I have had that have led me to have like this radical of action taking against this person. I'm going to have to stand up in court and read my dissertation to a judge and whoever else and admit that I actually participated in an act with a person who was way beneath what I deserved and how much I put up with for a couple of years with this person. So I'm sharing this with you because just like some of you, I'm going through my own version of working through shame and guilt and trying to forgive myself for putting up with this motherfucker's bullshit for far too long, right? And so again, the most important thing, most empowering thing I did for myself was to stand up and say, okay, this is happening, and there's a legal system protect me. Not only this is a boundary for myself, this is a boundary that is going to reverberate and change my paradigm with men and relationships for all time. I'm doing this right at the close of my Chiron return. I'm coming out of my Chiron return, which happens about the 18th of April in pretty dramatic fashion, because that's what I do best. Big drama right at the 11th hour. And so I want to share this with you so you all know that I have an understanding. I have a real understanding of shame and guilt and suffering and martyrdom and all these things, and a lack of sovereignty, right? Working towards my sovereignty, all these things that, we talk and we communicate about on Facebook. I'm working towards that too. I'm a work in progress, just like everybody else.
And so let's talk about Chiron, because that's Chiron is shifting between Pisces and, first of all, thanks for sharing that with us, Ameera. Chiron is shifting between Pisces and Aries. Pisces is as above, Aries is so below. Chiron has an elliptical orbit, so some signs get it for 2 years, some signs get it for 5, some signs get it for 8. As above and so below, Pisces and Aries, they both get it for 8. And I've been asking, like, whenever I'm reading charts, I'm like, why is that happening? And I think it's because the tie between as above and so below has been so frayed through shame and guilt, because we've been in a lot of darkness for a long time. And so Chiron and Pisces, you all have gone through a lot of suffering and a lot of martyrdom, and you're having to put that to bed. And so whenever Chiron goes into Aries, that's my generation. We're going to have a lot of shame and guilt. I can already feel it coming, about destruction, how we've hurt ourselves and we've hurt each other, and like, oh God, what have we done? And you all, Ameera, are going to have to say, remember, you're not bad. You're not bad. And we're going to go, right? We're not bad, right? And you're like, yeah, you're not bad. That you all, the Chiron and Pisces generation, has been towing the line for everyone. So Chiron and Aries, Chiron and Taurus, Chiron and Gemini, they've all had a head start on relieving themselves from their suffering, although it's going to take on a different kind of flavor. You all have been pulling everyone through the eye of the needle. And so
you're welcome.
Yeah. So Chiron and Aries, I've got similar stuff. I am having to face how mean I've been to myself, how I've been hard on my body, how I pushed myself too hard, how I actively put myself into dangerous, violent situations because I'm strong enough to take this. Wham! I'm strong enough to take this. Wham! That's Chiron and Aries. And when you look up and you're like, oh God, why did I do that to myself? Whoa, 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 whoa. We have to not go down the road of, oh God, why did I do that? Listen, life is an experience. That's why.
Life is an experience.
You have compassion and you have curiosity and you're trying to grow and you're figuring things out and you're innocent and you're vulnerable and you're strong. It's just that it's an experience, and that's it. And so we have to, Chiron is going to wibble wobble. It's going to go into Aries in April. It's going to go back into Pisces, September to February, and then it's going to go back into Aries and be there for 8 years. And I think that that's going to have the effect of Chiron going into Aries. Everyone, and especially Chiron and Aries people, are going to go, oh God, what have we done? You know, we're so bad. And then Chiron's going to go back into Pisces, and you all are going to be like, now that you thoroughly feel like shit about yourself, let me remind you that this is not about suffering. You're not bad. There's no price to pay. It's time to end it. It's time to end being mean to ourselves and hurting each other, and to pull ourselves out of it. Chiron and Aries, the shift between Chiron to Pisces to Chiron and Aries happens around liberation movements, and rightly so. Whenever we go from as above into so below, we realize what we've done and we heal ourselves out of it, then we start liberating ourselves and each other. That's happening during a major shift in the world. So here it comes. And I've been saying to everyone, the way that we approach macro changes in the world is through the micro. You have to come right here.
Macro like, to the micro.
I'm not bad.
Energy out, energy in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That I didn't realize what it meant for a long time when they said, heal yourself, heal the world. I feel it now, because if we deny ourselves our own joy, we deny it for everyone. If we deny ourselves our own healing, we deny it for everyone. That it's not like humanity happens out there and then there's us. We are humanity. So whatever you want for yourself, you want for everyone. If you want everyone to not suffer anymore, you better start with you. If you want everyone to stop being mean to themselves and to take care of themselves and grow higher, you better start with you. It starts with you first. Heal yourself, heal the world.
Yeah. I am having my perception of my experience is that this is healing me. Mm-hmm. I don't feel victim at all. I don't feel angry at myself anymore at all. I see how this is an opportunity for me to be healed of all of this for all time. And I have to be honest, I'm really excited about that.
Yeah. Michael, thank you for joining. Now, can you mute yourself in the lower left? Please just hit mute, and the sound, we won't get the backdrop noise from your mic. Thank you. Do you feel like it's sealed off and done, Ameera? Do you think this will seal it off?
I think this will seal it off. I think the act of me actually being present for myself, being my own advocate, and using the patriarchal system that does have its place in our life to help me and to protect me. Absolutely. I feel like I am speaking this to every man or in every relationship where I've allowed myself to be dishonored. And I'm really not even upset with myself for the amount of, BS that I rolled around in for a long, 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 long time. I'm just not, because I have the rest of my life ahead of me. I have the rest of my life. I mean, I got a good 10, 20 years left.
Oh, come on. Way more than that.
Probably 50 or 60 years left
to
go and have an amazing partnership and an amazing relationship.
That's right.
I'm totally stoked for that.
Do you know what joy looks like when you're sealing off suffering and you're like, it's time to live in joy? Do you have to start small and reteaching yourself? And we were talking about reuniting with joy. Do you have to start small to find out what that means, or do you know in big ways?
I think you have to just notice. All you have to do is notice every way or everything that brings you joy. And if it's not bringing you joy, just notice that it's not and turn into what is going to bring me joy. I actually have a lot of joy in my life. I have joy for my career. I have joy for my friends. I have joy for my family. I have joy for living on this amazing island. When you tune into all the good, wonderful, amazing things that do fill you up, okay, that do bring your soul that satisfaction, it's really, really easy to want more of that and to crave more of that. We get really caught up in drama, right, of the contrast. We don't need contrast and extremes anymore to grow and heal. We heal through joy. And that's it. We're not healing through contrast and pain anymore. That's the Pisces thing we've already talked about. It's done and over with. If you really want to become healed and act healed and be in your healing, just go to what really brings your soul and your heart happy. Why are you here? What is your purpose? And do only that. Everything else gets to walk away.
I find it fascinating. You're coming, Chiron in Pisces is ending, and you're able to fully embrace living in liberation and joy. Chiron in Aries is starting, and I'm like, oh God, how do we get there? And I
kind of feel like Chiron going into Aries for me, because Aries is about self, right? Mm-hmm. I kind of feel like I'm going to come into deeper into my true self.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Self-identity. I've noticed that since I haven't gone through the Chiron return process yet, I'm noticing that whenever I get into, oh God, this is going to hurt, I'm like, whoa, stop. This is a healing, not a haunting. This is a healing. Right. Okay. And so in the middle of going, it's okay. Bring the elixir to yourself. It's all right. You're not bad. You're fine. But also the thing about joy is I'm learning the small things. I'm like, don't just kind of hear your son laughing, Susan. Listen to him laugh.
Yeah.
Listen to him. When I'm walking home from taking my son to school, and normally I'd be like, oh, the flowers are blooming. I'm like, the flowers are blooming. Wow. Okay.
It's bringing all the 3D sensory things, the 5 senses that we have, and amplifying them, allowing them to be amplified in your life. Because it really is the simple, subtle things that we overlook every day that can bring us the most joy and the most excitement.
Beauty is always trying to talk to us. And I've been trying, you may not be surprised. You may be experiencing this too with your clients, Ameera, but whenever I talk about, because the North Node is in Leo, when I talk about it's time to find your joy, it's time to live in joy. That's what we're supposed to be doing. A lot of people are like, I don't even know what that means, Susan.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means. And so one thing is I'm trying to explain that it's not mania. It's not like, all the time. It's not. It's quietness. It's appreciation. It's noticing other people's happiness and being like, oh, that's beautiful. It's letting in and receiving the beauty that's trying to be delivered to you that we normally shut out because we're too busy thinking about how awful things are.
Yeah. You were going to talk about the difference between being in pain and suffering. Hey guys, everybody, put your phone on, put your stuff on mute. Hi, Philippa.
In the lower toolbar, if you go to the left-hand side, left corner, you can just hit mute and mute your mics if you don't mind, so that we're not getting extra noise while we're recording.
So what is the difference between being in pain and suffering?
Right. So people I think are getting confused, because whenever they feel something that hurts, they're like, oh God, I shouldn't be feeling this because we're not supposed to be in suffering anymore. That's not suffering. We will have things that hurt us. Hurt means when something hurts, it means something's wrong. You need to still have hurt. You need to go, oh, this feels like shit. Move away from that. I mean, you still need to have that experience. Suffering is resisting what is. And so in the case of hurt or pain or karmic cycles that we can't seem to get out of, but now we have the opportunity to do so, is that there's a wounding, and our ego repeats that wounding over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, because it's resisting the fact that it happened in the first place. Our ego thinks that if we keep repeating that pain over and over and just do maybe something a little bit different, then we can undo the wounding and make ourselves unhurt. And that's impossible. It's impossible. We can't make hurt not have happened. Hurt happens. And so suffering would be, this has happened. It's an experience. I get to learn from it. I get to heal. And then I get to move on and let go of it. Suffering is holding on to pain to the point where it starts to erode you. Pain will always exist because we need to have a barometer on what to move forward, move towards, and what to move away from. That's fine. That's part of life. Suffering is when we get in it and we're like, no, 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 no. Yes, yes, things happen. Yes, it's the end of a relationship. Yes, stop saying no. Yes, you fell down and broke your arm. Yes, you did. Now go put a cast on it, let it heal, and get back out there again. See what I'm saying? Like, suffering is saying, no, this didn't happen. It can't happen. I can't stand this. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. This is a problem that needs to be solved, or it's a wound that needs to be healed, or it's a circumstance you need to let go of. Go ahead and let go of it and let life happen. Life is always trying to deliver us into growth and to exaltation and into liberation. When we try to resist life trying to help us, we hurt ourselves. And Lord knows I've done it. I have fought that shit so hard. Oh my God. It's like, Susan, you're not supposed to be there. I'm like, no, I must stay here.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay. And I face plan every time. And I've learned with experience to be like, okay, clearly I'm not supposed to be here, and back up and let life deliver the way that it wants to, because we have energies that can see further than us that are trying to keep us in our lane. We do. We have higher powers. We have higher selves. We have our souls. We have God. Getting God back into our experience, getting divinity back into our identity. There's something bigger than us guiding us. Let it. Yes. Stop fighting it, and you won't be in suffering.
Be soul led. Tuning into joy is really about choices. If you're making the same choices over and over again and expecting a different result, it's probably not going to happen. So maybe you want to start allowing your soul to help you make some radical new choices that are of self-love and self-care and not in self-harming. Mm-hmm. Okay, that are loving to the self. And if you have a feeling of abandoning somebody and you're feeling guilt and shame because you feel like you're abandoning somebody or situation, you're really trying to heal the abandonment within yourself.
Oh, yeah. 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 It's like if I don't abandon them, it'll make up for the fact that I'm abandoning myself.
Yes.
Oh God.
Abandonment is always about how we are abandoning ourselves or working through our own abandonment wounds. Mm-hmm.
And there's some Cancer energy involved in that too. I've noticed we can sometimes fall into our Cancer energy where we fit. Philippa, I think, I'm sorry, I hope I'm saying that right. Can you mute your mic, please? So there is, what was I talking about?
Abandonment.
Cancer. Oh, Cancer. There we go. We can fall into our Cancer energy where it's like, if I don't hold this person up, then they won't survive. or if I don't fix this problem for that person, then they won't be okay. And then we abandon ourselves and throw ourselves into them because somehow we think that being needed equals being loved. And it doesn't. Being needed does not equal love. If someone loves you, they love you just because you're here and you're present, not because they need you and they want to suck the life out of you. Right? Like someone who loves you, if you started going, here's all the ways that I'm going to help you, they'd be like, whoa, 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 I'm okay. I can stand up. You don't need to do that. I love you just because you're here. Having to pour all of ourselves into somebody to be like, you're going to love me now, right? No,
yeah.
No,
love just is.
Anyway. I just love you. It's okay. You don't have to do that. That we abandon ourselves in order to not abandon someone else. And it's distress. It's distress based.
Yeah. You all are responsible for one person, only one person. You know who you're responsible for? Yourself.
That's it.
Your damn self. That's it. Everybody on this planet has one mission for God, and that is to be self-responsible. That is to take care of their own self and energy. If you can do that, if you can become self-responsible, manage your own frequency and vibration, learn what that's all about, you have done your job for God. That in itself is a ripple effect for other people. You are not abandoning other people if you choose yourself. If you choose your own sanity, if you choose your own sovereignty, you're doing the opposite. You're actually modeling for people what's possible. And if they get upset with you because you're not playing their game or you're not catering to their needs, like some people have us trained, sometimes our kids and our spouses have us trained, right? And how they expect us to show up for them because that's what we've been doing. So when you decide to pull that back and set those boundaries and go into yourself and maybe make the statement, this is a boundary. I'm going to take care of myself in this situation. Okay. You have all the resources you need. You have angels, you have guides. There are books, there are counselors, right?
Read a book
that can help you through this. You have a community maybe that you can turn to help you through this. Okay. And if you get some pushback from the people in your lives because you're no longer playing into the paradigm that they have, that you have set up, the agreement. We set up these unconscious agreements all the time in our relationships. Okay. See through the facade that you are not abandoning them. Okay. That you are not bad. That they are not going to curl up in a corner and die without you. Mm-hmm. In fact, they're probably going to learn to find their own strength and their own power, their own personal power and their own resources, because you can't do that for them.
No. And
you don't do it for yourself.
Everybody has their own relationship with life. If we inject ourselves into that and go, oh no, you're not allowed to fall down. Well, sometimes we need to fall down a couple of times so we can learn how to stand up. Like, who do we think we are injecting ourselves into other people's lives and going, oh, no, you can't do that. Yeah, they can. They have a
I must save
with
you.
Yeah, no. And then it's reversed too. When we abandon ourselves or when we don't take care of ourselves or when we martyr ourselves or when we say, I don't matter, everybody else does, then you're saying that about everybody. Everybody should self-deny. Everybody doesn't get to be happy. Everybody has to suffer. That our separation is a perception. There is no separation. We are all one people. All of us ultimately are one energy. And whenever you start going, I don't matter, you're saying no one matters.
Yeah.
It's how you treat yourself is how you want everyone to be treated. You treat everyone the way that you want to be treated. It's all one. And so if you want to literally, I'm kind of beside myself. I'm just now getting this, but it literally is that when you heal yourself, you heal the world. Like literally.
Macro to the micro to the macro.
That's right. That's right. I kind of wonder if there's a worthiness thing going on with joy, because with the
North, for sure.
With North Node in Leo, I get a lot of people feeling like that's arrogant.
Should I be this happy?
That's selfish.
Is it okay to be this happy?
Right. Or like, whenever I say your number one priority now is to find your joy and to reach for what exalts you, people are like, what? Like as if that's selfish. It's not. It's not. It's the opposite sign for Leo is Aquarius, and that's about the collective. So if you deny it for yourself, you deny it for everyone. If you reject yourself, you reject everyone. It matters. You matter. Reaching for what's going to exalt you is reaching for what's going to exalt everyone.
Yes.
And if you don't want it for yourself, you don't want it for anyone.
Right. That's right.
And I don't think anybody would, like, people aren't willing to go around and say, my happiness is a priority. They're not willing to say that. But I don't think people would go around and say, all of you people don't get to be happy. Nobody would say that. You'd be like, what? What a jerk. So why are we willing to say it about ourselves if we're not willing to say it about everybody else?
You are that powerful to affect the collective. Some people think they're not that powerful. You know, how am I that powerful that I make these choices that are actually collecting the collective? Absolutely they are.
Mm-hmm. I had that epiphany whenever I was in my early 20s. I was driving down the street, and in my little logical mind, I was thinking, you know, about the whole thing about hurt people,
mm-hmm.
that we perpetuate
mm-hmm.
hurt by what's been happening to us. We don't
right.
process it. We don't heal it. And then we end up doing it to other people. And it spreads like a web, right? Hurt spreads like a web. And I was driving down the street and I was thinking to myself, well, it seems to me like somebody would have to be the one to stop doing that. And who would that be? And then it was like the energy around me was like, I'll give you a minute. And I was like, oh, me. Yeah, you. Individually. All of us individually have to make the choice to step out of that web of distress and fear and suffering and perpetuating those messages. Individually, we have to unplug from that. Individually. You break down the web of suffering and fear and darkness when you individually unplug from it and heal.
It's a part of unplugging from the matrix and from the collective mind, from the collective suffering.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So maybe on the full moon, we have a blue full moon on Saturday, Libra.
Blue meaning that it's kind of rare to have two full moons.
Yeah. Although we had two this year, which is kind of cool. Full moons in Libra. Yeah.
Full moons in Libra, 10 degrees. So that means that the sun will be at 10 degrees Aries. The moon will be at 10 degrees Libra. I was looking at the chart for that, and I definitely think we should talk about it, Ameera. At the same time, Chiron will be at 29 Pisces.
So close. And 29 is a master number.
Yeah,
it's 11.
It's called the anaretic degree. It's the highest degree in the sign. It means we're truly mastering something. It's been going on for 8 years. Okay. It's like, we're not going to live in suffering anymore. And then you would think that when you get to the top of the zodiac, when you get to the top of a sign and you're at the highest degree, you would get a party, but you don't.
I'm having a party.
Yeah.
And I am not expecting to wake up on the 18th of April and have like my life just magically fixed. But what I am expecting is I'm holding myself accountable. I'm monitoring and being compassionately kind with my thoughts and with my decisions and choices. I am paving the way in the 11th and a half hour of Chiron and Pisces. Okay, so when the astrology supports my healing, when I do wake up on that day, I can say I now have a track record of I have this track record. I've paved this way for myself for a brand new paradigm of being in relationship with myself and a relationship with other people.
That you have participated in your own healing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And part of the way I'm going to participate in my own healing is on the 31st. We'll go back to the moon. I'm going to do a little ceremony, a little written ceremony, and I'm going to bless every relationship, every man in every relationship I have ever had. Bless them and thank them for walking along beside me up until this point, and just set them free from any place, anywhere I might be holding somebody in iniquity. Holding them less than divine and carrying the hurt and carrying the pain. I'm going to do a little ceremony and a burning, and I'm going to let that go because I no longer wish to carry those experiences. That's no longer like my badge. It's no longer my identity. I'm not going to wear it like a medal anymore and say, look what I've been through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so full moon in Libra. Once again, if everybody can please mute your mics because we're getting some background noise, and that would be in the lower left-hand corner. Just hit mute and you'll be muted. So full moon in Libra. So again, sun is in Aries, moon is in Libra. Here's a lesson that I think is important about the axis between Aries and Libra is during Aries season, we're redefining our egos, our identities, how we self-identify, right, as a human being. And a lot of times our ego can run amok and cause destruction or get too defensive or smash things or whatever. And I think the full moon is trying to say, act from a place where you want to find common ground, because what you want is people closer, not further away. Mm-hmm. That a lot of times when we're standing up for ourselves in an ego-based kind of way, we're like, you're like, no, like fighting things off. But I think that we forget that really we need people. We all need each other. Mm-hmm. It starts with standing up in full power, but we need better communication, better balance, better abilities to find beauty and harmony and flow, to get into relationships that are exalted into being sacred unions rather than distress-based relationships. So standing tall in who we are so that our relationships can be exalted into sacred unions. I think that's one of the lessons about the full moon in Libra and Chiron at the 29th degree. Don't let your relationships be distress-based. That's not what we're doing. We want relationships that have everyone standing up in the full power of who they are. Nobody playing it small. Nobody having to contort themselves into cages. Nobody feeling like they have to be smashed down in order to be loved. No, you don't. Stand up in full power. The people who are meant to love you can't see you when you're playing it small. Stand up in full power. Reach for peace and harmony and flow in sacred unions, not distress-based unions. And everyone gets to come out of suffering. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think no matter what label that you put on your relationship, no matter what you call it, if you're suffering, if you're suffering in a relationship, if you aren't being honored, if you aren't being respected, if you aren't being heard and seen, no matter what label you put on that relationship, maybe you want to think about, that's not your beloved. Mm-hmm. That's not your sacred union.
There's a lesson that comes out of the Pluto and Libra generation where if you're thinking any version of it's probably fine, then it's not.
Yeah.
Okay. They haven't worked in 10 years. It's probably fine. No, it's not. No, it's not. I feel like shit when I'm around them. It's probably fine. No, it's not.
Yes.
I have to make myself small. Otherwise they tell me I'm too big and they get mad at me and smash me down. It's probably fine.
If there is resistance, it's not fine.
It's not fine. It's probably fine as a flat.
Should we take a few questions? You feel like a good time for that?
Yeah. Do you want to do it in chat or we don't have Q&A. Yeah, we'll do it in chat.
Yeah, let's do it in chat.
Okay. So if you guys have any questions for us, just hit the chat button at the very bottom, and then you'll see the chat bar on the right-hand side of your screen. And at the very bottom of that, you can type in a question for us and we'll be able to see it.
And I think there's a hand raise thing. You can hand raise with a question too, right? Yeah.
I don't see that on mine.
Oh, I probably see that on my end now.
Okay.
And I think a couple people did that earlier, and then we were in our dialogue, and maybe the question got missed. So if you have something to say or something to ask, pop it in for us again.
I feel so excited about the time we're in, Ameera. It feels like such big change that happens in the soul, in the heart, down to the bones kind of way.
Yeah. To the core. To the core.
It feels like a very empowered experience to be going through, and also very humbling.
Yeah.
Like, wow, I am participating in something really big. I even have an emotional charge about it. I'm like, God, don't cry, Susan, Jesus.
Yeah. I kind of feel like these are the moments. This is the moment I've waited my whole life for.
Yeah. I think that's true for a lot of people on the planet right now. A lot of people that I talk to in readings are like, I feel like something's coming. Yeah, we all do. Mm-hmm. We all do. This is big. This is really big. Anybody have any questions for us?
Come on, there's a whole bunch of you out there. Somebody's got to have something to say. Is this thing on?
This is fun doing this on the fly, Ameera. We're like, yeah, let's do it. Okay.
Yeah. And, we always appreciate, Susan, I really appreciate all of you who show up and listen to us and participate in these type of big group experiments that, it really is it is an honor for us to be here and to be with you and to share from our hearts to yours.
And if you're here during the recording, you're part of this too. Like all time is happening now. So you're here with us as well. Anybody who's participating in this, we appreciate it very much.
Yeah. Wow. Quiet group. Oh, here we go. Can you can see the chat as well, Susan?
Yes.
Both of you bring up Chiron. This is from Cindy. Both of you bring up Chiron in astrology. I have my natal chart. So how can I use that to help me? That's for sure a question for you.
Well, you'd want to get a reading from an astrologer, and I know one.
I know one too. For anybody who doesn't know Susan, because they're probably susangrace.org, astrologer star extraordinaire. I've had many readings from Susan. Most of the people in this chat. She is definitely an intuitive astrologer who can go right into the heart of your chart and the heart of your soul and help you understand how your particular map, this map that you have known as astrology, is very intimate and specific to you and your life situations, and walk you through, all the different dynamics and language you can understand.
Yeah, I converted into English.
Yes.
And also along those lines, I also post on social media, on Facebook and Instagram, the energy of the day for everyone. So at the very least, you can follow that too, to just kind of see what kind of sky we're under. And then how can you use your natal chart? You want to see where Chiron is in your chart. I can't show you what the Chiron sign looks like, but you can Google it. You can just look up sign for Chiron. It'll show you the symbol and find what sign that symbol is in your chart, and then you'll know what lesson you're learning. If Chiron and Pisces people are finishing up their Chiron returns, by return I mean that Chiron has been going through the sign where Chiron was when they were born. Chiron and Aries are going to start in April. Then it goes into Taurus and Gemini. And as we were saying earlier, people who have Chiron in Aries and Taurus and Gemini, they've been having a head start on relieving themselves from their suffering, because Chiron and Pisces people like Ameera have been pulling all of us through the eye of the needle to try and get us out of the concept in general of having to suffer to that degree. But yeah, it's to read your own chart, you'd have to dig into it. And you can do that. You can dig into it through the internet. But then there's also people like me who are professional astrologers, and we've been doing this a long time, and we're able to interpret, not just give definitions for your chart. So astrology is kind of like an art. You can learn the nuts and bolts, certainly, but then you want to get someone who you trust to interpret what those nuts and bolts mean. It's an art form. It's like learning the mechanics of French, and then you start reading French poetry. It's different. But you can certainly look up those things for yourself. But then the other thing I wanted to mention about charts while we're on it is, don't let just anybody in your chart. I see people posting their chart online like it's a free-for-all. Like, everybody tell me what you think about my chart. Don't do that. Don't do that. Your chart is very sensitive.
It's sacred, and your chart is sacred.
Yeah, it's sacred. It's who you are from a soul level all the way up to your connection to spirit. And it shows also how you're connected to all of your other incarnations. It's real serious. And so, the last thing you need is some jackass saying one weird comment and put you into a tailspin for 10 years. You don't need that. Choose somebody who you trust to interpret your chart for you.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm trying to, I don't know if I can scroll up. I can't scroll up. Ameera, can you scroll up?
Yeah. Okay. So your comment, Dawn says, your comment, I feel like shit on him or her is not part of this experience to learn. What about your boundaries? What your boundaries are, discomforts are, being required not to get out of the relationship, friendship, especially if the friend is on board with consciously talking about the impact we have on each other's lives. So Dawn, I think what you're asking is if you have somebody who's trying to work through a relationship that doesn't feel so good with you, consciously talking about the impact you have on each other, should you get out or stay in the relationship? I think that's what you're asking. If you have somebody who's actively, responsibly participating in making the relationship better or bringing understanding to the relationship, if that feels sincere, then maybe you continue on and you continue to have that dialogue until either something shifts or doesn't shift, or you feel it's exhausted. We have conflict in relationships just go hand in hand. But conflict, just because there is conflict, doesn't mean it's a toxic relationship. We're humans, we're emotional, we're always going to butt up against each other. You know if a relationship is toxic or is good for you by the way that person is willing to participate in the healing and in the understanding of the conflict. Are you treated with kindness and consideration? Are your words heard? Is that person willing to sit down with you time after time and say, okay, we did it again. How do we work through this? How do I show up better for you? And this is what I need from you. What do you need from me?
And being willing to do the work individually.
Yeah.
Right? Like I screw up in relationships all the time, and you better believe I line myself up in sessions quick. Right?
Yeah, right.
I try and figure out what the hell's going on with me. People need to be able to be willing to look at their own stuff. Melissa, I want to answer the question from Melissa, if that's okay.
Yeah.
The thing about feeling like time is speeding up, I have an out there kind of answer, but I've really been thinking about this a lot, Melissa. I do feel like time is speeding up. I do also feel like we're having access to our other incarnations. We're having access to possible timelines on how our decisions can play out. Different outcomes can be switched. Ameera talks about this a lot, about jumping timelines. Pluto in Capricorn is tearing down old rules, old structures, old paradigms. Saturn's coming in to dismantle it. Jupiter's going to come in and super juice it up. One of the structures that I feel like is collapsing in that teardown is our concept of linear time. That linear time itself, our perception of it, our construct of it is collapsing because all time is happening at once, that all of our incarnations are happening at once, that there is no such thing as past, present, and future. Consciousness is one wave that's always happening right now.
And we are healing, collapsing, merging timelines constantly. Yeah, we are healing, merging, collapsing timelines all at once. Mm-hmm. On a multidimensional spectrum, we are working overtime. I keep losing you a little bit.
Working overtime?
We are working overtime all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing about, we were talking about how joy is found in stillness, that's actually really powerful because everything is happening right now. That you can tap into joy, you can tap into possibility, you can tap into other outcomes that you would prefer if you'll be still. Be still right now and experience the presence of current time, because that's all there is. The only thing existing right now is right now. That's the only thing that has ever existed right now. Linear time is a construct that we all kind of agree upon to learn the lessons that we want to in the human experience that we're in.
Okay, so Tammy's got a question about income generating. And there can be a lot of stress, maybe, around, for all of us, about the survival and income generating, even when it comes to the things we want to be doing that make us feel purposeful. Because when we're doing something when we are working in a job or a career that helps us to feel purposeful, okay, that is tied to joy, right? Okay, that's the ideal, right? We all want to be doing something that is in line with our gifts and our skills and make us feel good. Okay, so if you're going into some kind of a career, you're in some kind of a career that you really do love, but you're feeling resistance or you're feeling some kind of pushback to either getting that off the ground or worrying about what's going to happen, you're not truly connected to the joy of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would also keep in mind that Uranus is going into Taurus in May. When Uranus goes into Taurus, we are going to revolutionize what we value. And so if you're doing something that's killing you, you might find the money drain out of it to where it doesn't supply you with income anymore because it wants you out.
Yeah.
wants you somewhere where you find something important and valuable to you to be doing. It also means that things like wellness practitioners, artists, community builders, anything that's trying to heal us and move us upward, the value on that in society is going to go. I'm here to tell you they will. But also everyone's going to find value in anything that's going to help them to evolve rapidly. So when Uranus goes into Taurus. So I think food, fixing water, healthcare, new ways of teaching, wellness practitioners, artists, community builders. If you have an interest in any of those kinds of things, position yourself, get into it now, get ahead of the thing. And by May, we're going to start seeing all those things go way up.
Yeah. And you guys let go of the idea, like if you feel like you have a spiritual contract, or if you made some kind of an agreement before you came in to do a certain work or do a certain job here on this earth plane, let go of that and just do it because it brings you joy. Not because you had an agreement, not because there's a bunch of angels who said, this is what you signed up for, or if you worked with a healer that said, this was your contract, this is what you're here to do. Okay, that is a joy sucker. Do it, participate in it, practice it, bring it forward because it really makes your soul happy. And that's it.
So, Ameera, along those lines, tell us about how you've been migrating into wisdom wear.
Oh, okay.
John, come up here.
Hi, Melissa, can you mute yourself, please?
You look so pretty in your picture. So what do you mean by migrating?
Well, I mean, you've been like a practitioner for a long time,
yes.
And now you're like, I've got this thing, wisdom wear now, and I love it. Wow.
Okay, so the irony is I bought wisdom wear from the person that I'm taking to court. So this person who is giving me this really extra special experience is the person who actually sold me his clothing company in the first place a little bit over a year ago. And so part of the struggle that we have is that his ego is still very, very attached to the idea that he created this company, he created the logo, and that he feels like it's still his baby. So he's a controlling person. And although he's handed over to me lock, stock, and barrel, energetically, he still feels like me and my company belong to him. So I was having a very difficult time getting him severed, his energy severed out from me, from my field, and from my company, so it could, wisdom wear could do what it wants to. Wisdom wear brings me so much joy, and it is mad as I am with this guy, I really can only thank him for passing something on to me that gives me so much purpose and so much personal power and lights me up creatively, right? Because I get to make this clothing, this great clothing with these crystals in it, with the Andaras that I adore. And I get to pass those all over the world to people that I love and who love this clothing. So kind of going from being a healer in one paradigm and using my healing skills and gifts and having this opportunity through clothing to offer healing and medicinal clothing to people on a different spectrum, it has absolutely taken who I thought I was and what I thought I was here to do and taken me out of a contract or out of agreement or out of what my guides say that I'm here to do and offered me something that absolutely just, I wake up and I'm obsessed with it. And I want to do it, and I want to talk about it every day. And I appreciate all of you who have purchased clothing from me and have passed on wisdom wear to your friends and to your family members. It really is becoming a movement. And so sometimes spirit will come in and give you something totally I've worked with psychics and mediums for many, many years. And none of them told me before I moved to Kauai I would own a crystal-infused sacred geometry clothing company. Every time you think that maybe you know the answer or you know what's going to happen, I'm going to tell you don't. Because some of it's meant to be a surprise. Some of it's meant to be a gift. And I hope I hope you can still hear me. I can see we're kind of freezing a little bit. I'm just gonna keep talking. Some of it is meant to not be seen by any seers and not over you, and you are just to,
hear you.
You are just to keep your hands and arms open and receive, because you never know what the universe is going to give you. Don't limit yourself to an idea of what you think, who you are, and what you're here to do, and how you're supposed to show up. Because something might drop in from absolutely nowhere that no one told you was coming. That might be awesome.
Yeah. I've had that experience with seers too, where I'm not getting the answer that I want, and coming. What's meant for you is unstoppable. Did I freeze?
No, actually, the whole call dropped. So there may be a space in this video where there's about 30 seconds of silence, but you're all good now. Say whatever you said before, say it again.
Okay, so I've had that experience with seers too, where I'm not getting the answer that I want because they're not telling me. And it's like, Susan, you're not allowed to know. You're not allowed to know. You're supposed to be experiencing life. You're supposed to show up vulnerable. You're supposed to show up authentic and let life meet you halfway.
Let life,
and part of the thing about
you.
That's right. And don't worry about it. What's meant for you is unstoppable. And one of the things that's happening when we're being liberated from old rules and old structures and old paradigm rules are the way it's supposed to be done. We have to walk out into a brand new world and be like, I have no idea what's going to happen with this. And then vulnerable and open, life is filled with you. There we are, and we're back.
Yes, and we're back. I think some of the people in my household must be using some of the Wi-Fi, is what I think. They're sucking up. Stop it. This is important. You guys, you can find Susan at susangrace.org. You can find me at ameerabeth.com. We are both on Facebook. Friend us up if you're not already. Ask us questions, hit us up with stuff. You know, we really here are in service to all of you, in service to the collective, as well as in service to ourselves.
Yeah, Ameera and Beth and I are here and present, available every day. That we really do feel like we're all in this together. It feels like a growing a web that just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing.
Yeah.
And so during an exciting time in the world, when the whole world is changing, we're all kind of here for each other, and we make ourselves available to you too.
Hey, listen, it's okay. It's okay to decide to live as a fifth dimensional being and be in that consciousness and be in that realm and step out of all the third dimensional crapola. It really is okay. Like, it really is okay to be happy. That's the biggest thing that we want you to know. It is okay and good to choose happiness.
That's right. That's right. I love doing this with you, Ameera. Every time we do it, I'm like, this is so fun.
I know. Yeah. Thank you for feeling willing to put this together on the fly. You guys, I'll have this up on.
I love doing this with you.
I'll have this video up on YouTube in the next couple of days, and I'll post on Facebook. And, you know, Susan, I always appreciate shares. If you felt some good content within this and you decide to share it on your page or with people you love, then we would appreciate that very, very much.
Let's do this again soon.
Yes. Yeah, we'll wait for the next, I don't know, big event. I guess there's always a big event, isn't there?
Thanks for doing this with me, Ameera.
Yeah, you're welcome, honey. I love you. I love you all. Waves of aloha from Kauai. All right. Aloha, everybody.
Bye, you guys.